All right, welcome back for the final time tonight. We got one more game on the board for the PCS Spring Split 2022 Week 6 Day 1. It's an absolute mouthful, and of course I stumbled at the finish line, but that doesn't matter. What does is that we're going to see PSG taking on Impunity. And before we get there, I do want to thank our wonderful sponsors one more time. It is going to be CTBC Bank and Caliber. Thank you so much for making the PCS possible. Now, Clement, we've already seen one pretty darn big upset today. PSG, they had a pretty darn big upset last week. Can Impunity stack the odds in their favor?
Yeah, this one is absolutely massive, I think, for both teams coming into this one. We've already said a lot of times there are three teams vying for only one slot to get into the upper bracket, or else they will have to start lower, or they will be eliminated if they lose even just one best of 5. And on the other hand, for PSG, the pressure is mounting to defend their top spot. Earlier today, we said that if CFO and Beyond Gaming didn't pick up their games, then PSG would be able to just shake them behind with a win in the final game here. But since both of them have actually won, they can't even get rid of 4th and 5th place right now. They are still closing in on them. So all of these games are must-wins. I expect PSG to play extremely tight, and you will not see any shenanigans as the likes of DCG.
No, very not likely there as PSG taking to the rift here. They may have dropped a couple of games, but still looking stronger than ever. Hanabi, Juhan, Bay, Unified, and Kaiwing. And this is a team that, they have to worry about everyone creeping up on them right now because it's not just CFO and beyond. I mean, J-Team are up there too. The only sigh of relief there is the fact that Deep Cross lost today, and does mean that they could potentially put themselves 2 games ahead with 2 to play.
Yeah, we did see PSG drop a game against CFO very unexpectedly because CFO were doing very poorly. But if we want to sum up what happened in that game, was CFO played an extremely fast-tempo game. They dominated the mid lane early. We even saw Mission solo killing Bay with the Galio. Of all champions, I never expect Galio to solo kill anyone, but he was able to make that happen. And I feel like Impunity Esports will try a very similar strategy. Now, Taco has been having some really good games. He's one of the higher ranked players out of the entire PCS, actually. And Faith does like his assassins, so maybe we could see a same strategy. I would say Bay is kind of the big fundamental for PSG. His champions, especially the Rise, are kind of the bedrock where PSG build a lot of their rotations and their team fighting front on. So targeting Bay seems to be the way to go in all of these wins against PSG.
Yeah, of course, Faith has been also one of the bigger Rise players in our league, but he's shifted a little bit out of that from time to time. So I do think, trying to shut down Bay is a huge prio there for the likes of Impunity. But what will Faith go if they take away some of the shared champion pool? I think one thing that is a little bit relieving, though, for Impunity is that, we talked at the beginning of the day they had still not secured playoffs. Well, with a Hurricane loss earlier, they do, at the very minimum, have that 8th seed, but they can still earn so much more. Looking for a 6 would be huge, and of course they have a chance to try and leapfrog the likes of Meta Falcon team here with a win. It would be a massive statement for this squad to be able to do it, but we are into picks and bans. Tryndamere banned, Lee off the board. Let's see what's next.
Of course, Impunity is the last hope of the LST coming into this region, and the combination with the PCS here, so they have the entirety of the Southeast Asian fans behind them. PSG are going to start off with a lot of towards Quiet, banning away both of his champions, and this is pretty much a normal strategy for PSG because Hanabi can go for the Gnar, can go for the Gangplank. They do like to keep the power level of top lane picks relatively low so their weak side picks can still shine.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. It works well for PSG, and it's such an asset to have Hanabi be so excellent on so many champions, not just the power picks, but also the other ones you mentioned there. Ari ban as well against Faith. That's been his big non-Rise pick, I should say. It is an assassin. It's also a bit utility. Has some opportunities to do a little bit of both. Impunity's final ban, they are going to focus on Bay. Get rid of the Comfort Rise. He's still been able to find a lot of success on the likes of the Syndra and a handful of other champions. So we'll see what he goes towards this game. If they maybe try to take that away and put it in Faith's hands, he has had a Syndra game at least once this split.
So this is a very interesting draft strategy, and I think a lot of teams have caught on to the fact that Juhan tends to be the one to play a little bit looser when PSG have strong leads. they're banning away champions that have great escapes in the Lee Sin and the Hecarim. I think, honestly, Juhan's a lot easier to deal with if he's on something like the Xin Zhao that can be punished a lot harsher if he oversteps or misplays. So, Impunity...
Oh my goodness, no Zeri. No Zeri on either side.
Wow, we really are in 12.5. A
Yeah,
bit
for real.
surprising to see.
I mean, Blaze is like one of the only people to have lost on it, so fair. I kind of thought PSG would first pick it.
I haven't gotten the players' input on it just yet, but from what we've seen regionally around the globe, it's still a very strong pick. And I just want to say perhaps it's a small sample size, or perhaps both of these players have something else in mind right here. So we're going to take a look at the bans, at the picks coming through. PSG will have a weaker bottom lane, in my opinion. Tahm Kench, not a lane that can push rarely easily. We rarely see blind Tahm Kenches because of Renata's existence right now in the meta. So it's interesting to see what they're doing. But for me, it is shaping up to be a weak side bottom lane. But some very strong ganking potential onto Xayah later on.
Yeah, the Jarvan comes through for Juhan. This definitely gives him the ability to get in and out of the lanes with the flag and drag, and try to make some plays happen. Of course, on the Impunity side, a lot more potential damage and resets coming through with the Viego pickup. And, well, that's a pick that we only started to see very recently and very infrequently. Although Corki has been adopted, pretty much every other league around the world has put a lot of high prio on him to some extent. It's been a while until we start to see this, and it is a blind pickup here in the mid lane.
Yeah, it's a champion that's pretty weak in terms of the laning phase, but late game, his damage is just completely unparalleled. A lot of times I just don't understand where the Corki damage even comes through. The big change on 12.4 was, of course, you only get your packet at 10 minutes, so it can't impact the first Herald fight. We have seen a lot of teams sort of drop this champion after the changes, but I still think it's a great late game champion, and Impunity are shaping up to be more focused towards the later half of the game right here. PSG are throwing out some interesting bans here. I don't even think Impunity really care about the Rakan, to be honest. I feel like Impunity...
so many mid lane focused bans now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 5 bans towards the 2 new players on PSG.
Well, that goes to show you how strong this Korean duo has been and just kind of stabilizing this team. So kudos to them to slotting in and fitting this team very well. If we look at the champion pools, I believe that's a LeBlanc left. For
in terms of what we've seen, I mean, there's been a Silas come through. We've seen a Victor from Bay. I don't think it was particularly good. I'm looking at the few champions he's lost on, and it's mostly been the Rise. Yeah, Leona comes through. No surprises there. I mean, it seems like Pinway was pretty comfortable with whatever he was going to end up on. And now the only question mark for Impunity is what's going topside for Quiet. And he's going to be able to get the counter pick on Hanabi.
My guess is probably GP. He has to do it blind right here.
Yeah. The Nar as well. And hey, you know, we criticize everyone else. Nabi gets a pass.
That is
He's
true.
the only one.
I would say I'm pretty impressed by Hanabi's Nar over the split.
Okay, I want to know what Bay plays because those are some interesting covers.
It's a zero.
Okay,
you know
yeah,
it's
all right.
If you have a Corki...
wait, Syndra's up. What am I talking about?
All right, Syndra's a lot more fun. I would prefer the Syndra. And that gives him very strong just early game as well. A little bit more
games on it already.
I don't really like Cassio into Corki. I feel like the window is actually pretty limited. And this is why I prefer Gangplank.
You know, Quiet actually hasn't gotten to play this champion yet. I'm really excited to see what he does with it. I'm just going to say it. I like this Impunity comp. This is fun.
It's a lot of damage going into the bottom side. If you think about just the roam potential from both of these team compositions, Gangplank drops his ultimate, and it gets really dicey for Jinx into the bottom side. So, interesting draft all across the board. I feel like PSG are actually a little bit weaker on the top side. I could definitely see some 2v2s getting out of hand there. But they have super strong mid because of that Syndra versus Corki matchup. Corki's like half a champion in the laning phase, honestly.
Yeah, that's going to be tough.
And
if they can snowball on Faith.
Yeah, in the bottom side, I think it's like pretty half and half, but generally I feel like both champions on Impunity side are a little bit stronger and just pure laning phase. So I do see this being a very winnable game for them. They have both side lanes to play around, and all they have to do is just be very careful of allowing sort of like the Syndra and Jinx to kind of get out of hand. The rest of the champions aren't. I don't think that the threat level is even that high. One
yeah,
thing
this is.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say it's an interesting draft for sure.
Yeah, one thing I will note is kind of the Cataclysm combo. We saw the Cataclysm lock in as soon as Xayah came out, and the big reason here is even in Featherstorm, you cannot cross terrain. So it means that if you don't have a flash, Cataclysm goes on you. What goes up must come down. Xayah's still going to die, and that could be a potential target for them. There's a lot of combos that could go into that. You can Gnar hop, and that creates terrain, which you can create a stun directly using the Mega Gnar ultimate there as well. So there are some combos there that do focus on backlines, but when you have a GP and a Corki, I don't really feel like Impunity are that worried about a single target getting focused down.
Yeah, I also think that like when we came into the split, we looked at this squad and thought like Blaze was probably going to be the reason they won or lost games overall, but it hasn't always been the case for Impunity. Also, as the meta shifted a little bit, and we started to see some reliance on other damage dealing roles apart from the bot lane. I think Impunity have found a bit more of an identity. Some of the X factors in this one, they're going to be quiet. They're going to be Taco. I'm curious to see what Faith can do. I think his job is probably to just survive that lane. But hey, we'll see. We've already had one big upset today. Can Impunity make it another and shake up the standings even further? As we take a look at our runes coming out of this one. First strike on the Corki.
Very standard stuff. He does get poke a lot in, so first strike makes sense. I mean, Corki honestly just wants to survive till 6 in lane. And in the other lanes, we do have pretty standard runes across the board. The only big thing to mention is we do have Pingwei with the Glacial Augment, so does signal for more of a gank-heavy approach, and I applaud that one. Kai Wing is a champion that has a lot of issues getting away from targets, and there is a triple stun lined up between Taco and Pingwei. Definitely a good strategy to kind of exploit that bottom side. Meanwhile, in top lane, we have very similar rune choices here, but I would say slightly in favor of Quiet. I do like the grass versus grass matchup quite a bit. Not as much sustain coming in from the Gnar. And unless you can utilize Mega Gnar trades very well, it typically is a lane where you do see Gameplank just get ahead of. And we have seen, Gameplank being able to use early TPs. You just go for sort of like a cheater recall into Sheen and just kind of dominate the lane from that place going forward. There are no components that, unfortunately, the Gnar can match you at that 700 price point. So that's typically what happens in the top side. So I do expect Impunity to gank bot and have leads top.
That's the game plan we're going to be watching out for here. As we get underway, Kaiwing and Unified starting off with aggressive posture. Kaiwing getting a couple of licks out onto Blaze and Pinway, but just focus on getting that farm game going. Meanwhile, in the mid, we definitely have to keep an eye here on occasion, see if Bay can bully Faith out. Faith has definitely been one of the players that has been a liability for Impunity in the past, but I think he's been shaping up a lot more lately, and the question is it going to be enough in this game?
For sure. I feel like Faith, if you look at his stats, he does very little damage compared to most mid laners in the PCS. He's hovering around 21%.
Probably more than Nesty, though.
That's true. So Nesty's at like 16, which is like support level damage.
Nesty defies all your stats, man. Oh, Juhan coming in here for a...
He has used his EQ, so this is not actually a fight he can win here, but he is banking on the fact that Syndra can join first.
Okay, they're just going to go for it. Test your smite. No, flag and drag into it, and Taco actually has the jump on him right now. Juhan just didn't calculate it right.
I think he knew the calculations, like 1v1, he wasn't going to win, especially if he just EQ'd dragged up into that space. But Taco, first of all, didn't know that he EQ'd up there, and we already have kind of a weird trade from Pingwei here.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So, I feel like Juhan actually loses a lot of time on that one, and it was a good idea to bank on Syndra coming over, but I feel like he miscalculated how fast the rotation could actually come in, and the answer is fast enough to save him, but not fast enough to make Juhan run for his life.
Yeah, more or less. So, game state fairly even here. Taco going to be making a roam into the mid lane. Bay will try to walk out to safety, as takes the lane tax that is due. Pushes it right on back once again. We are still waiting on that gank down bottom side, but Juhan's significantly slowed down here. Might want to wait for him to get another clear off before he makes that visit. And bot lane's actually pretty pushed, so this is kind of hard for him to do.
I feel like I misjudged the matchup a little bit. Without the gank pressure, then you definitely see poke from Kaiwing just doing so much damage. I love his angles here on this top brush. She's been getting tongue lash after tongue lash after tongue lash. Every time we just turn here, it's very difficult for Xayah to avoid a lot of that. Now we finally see Taco coming in. If they want to force this...
full vision, though.
Yeah, he has to expect that he's on vision.
Pinway and Blaze also a little low, so if this turns into a straight-up 3v3, it doesn't favor Impunity. Now, he waits a significant amount of time, but PSG have access to the information here, and they are going to be bringing Juhan in for lane gank. Taco on another ward, so they go in Zenith Blade. Pinway gets deleted before Taco can even do anything. Blaze burns his flash, and Taco, caught on the Flame Chompers, limps away.
Oof, that was just painful to watch. PSG had that angle covered completely. They probably knew as soon as they had the Glacial Augment that was going to be the case here. I expected Impunity to actually wait a little while longer for that gank to develop. You really want to wait until you have 6 from Gameplank, who's having a great time top lane, as we were talking about. He's holding the wave here, and he does have that Sheen buy. And in the meantime, you really want to get that serrated Dirk to control the lane for Impunity. So forcing things a little bit too earlier on, they will pay a very heavy price for it. And we've seen this so many times. Unified a lot of times he just gets leads you're not expected him to get.
I mean, Unified's just ridiculously good. And Taco caught out in his own jungle here by Juhan. Faith going to try and help throw down the Foss Bomb. And here's both supports. But unfortunately, PSG is just winning the day, so they claim their prize, which in this case is Raptor Camp Taco. Despite being able to get that 1v1 early on against Juhan, fallen behind his opposite number. Oh, flash forward!
Flash in. Beautiful.
Hey! Oh, absolutely calculated.
Oh, got the exact number of spheres that he needed right there. You can go up to 6, but he gets the 5 spear calculation. That's really the difficulty about playing against a Syndra. She knows her damage numbers a lot better than someone that isn't playing her in that moment will. Just great flashing by Bade. That's going to get a Hex Drake. And also force the bot lane to play super safe at this point. This is going to be very difficult for Blaze. He doesn't have Featherstorm, and he doesn't have any summoners here. So venturing out is a tough ask at this point.
Yeah, that was the other thing about that fight down bottom. Not only did Blaze have to get quickly back to safety, but lost both his sums in doing it, and Taco trying to get a little bit of jungle on for himself. Oh, he doesn't even take the last one. Meanwhile, we don't even have time to talk about that because look what's happening. A repeat gank. Immediately Blaze gets popped. Kill into the pocket of Unified, and oh, it's going from bad to worse for Impunity down here.
Yeah, Impunity did not manage to hold the wave in that situation, and their jungle just burned his flash onto the top side of the map. They're completely isolated here, and that's kind of the problem when you're playing this sort of a weak mid laner. A lot of times the pressure is going to transition into bot. The bleed over is, at this point, very hard for bot lane to deal with. I feel like Blaze he doesn't have control of the lane, even on this item buy. Usually, we do see Xayah starting to be able to push, but with the 2 kills here, that's not going to be the case. And Impunity, they have that late game scaling. I'm not going to count Viego, Gameplank, and GP out, but it's looking like a real far way off.
Yeah. Quiet needs to stack a lot of gold real fast. Sitting on that Sheen. He's been having a pretty good time, as you mentioned, but unfortunately the rest of the team has not.
Yeah, and what we were really waiting for was the level 6 cannon barrage and the package to come through on a big team fight. That's what this comp is really all about. You want a bottom side fight, a 3v3, where the other members can just funnel in and make a clear win out of that. The problem right now is, if you look at the 3v3 in the bot lane, they pretty much just get one shot. So it doesn't even matter if the rest of your pieces have the additional mobility to get there. Your team that starts the fight is not going to survive till then.
No, it's you need to stay alive long enough for the teleports and the plays and the globals to start coming through, and not happening. PSG going to open up onto Rift Herald. Hanabi is able to roam after shoving the wave. Taco's nearby here, but that'd be a risky proposition to try and counter it. he really wanted to. Does spot this out, though, courtesy of that Scryer's Bloom, but a little too late to do much about it.
So I think in the late game, I feel like Impunity still have a lot of chances to kite away from danger. If you look at their composition, they have the triple barrel chain, and they have Faith just raining down rocket barrages onto Bay. So they still have a good chance of like kiting this game out and bringing it into a standstill. PSG do not have the strongest of engages, especially if you look at Kaiwing and Juan, of course, is great engage, but they don't really have much coming in from their support position. So Impunity, they just have to weather the storm at this point. Where Taco ends up is going to be absolutely critical, and this is a great timing by PSG. There are no TPs across the map, only Cannon Barrage here, and they're going to force it out.
Yeah, I think so. Well, maybe not. Okay, spoke a little bit too soon there as took a little bit of poke, decided to get cold feet on that one. No need to expose yourself to a bad situation as PSG playing pretty calm and measured. I'll be forcing quiet back a little bit there. And that is something that this iteration of PSG has been particularly good at, is just reading the map, reading the game state, and making the correct play 9 times out of 10.
They are very risk averse. I actually expected them to just go in and at least force out the ultimate right there, but they didn't want to get the 2-man caught on the top side of the map. Like, they had 2 extra ultimates in that fight, and they still played it extremely safe. This is 2022, new PSG for you.
Yeah, I know, right? How things change. Definitely a bit of a different look without Maple and River. But Bay and Juhan definitely have added their own flavor in the way this team has played. It has been very calculating gameplay. And there's a big part of why they sit atop the league, but not as cozy on that throne, Clement. Keep in mind, PSG, right? Like they've been the #1 seed into the playoffs for a year now, consistently, and won it after the fact. So if they don't get that first seed, it'll be the first time since 2020.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a huge thing to remember, how dominant PSG have really been. It's kind of easy to forget, but these guys weren't the Flash Wolves, okay? You might see Maple, you might see Hanabi as like, they're the Flash Wolves, but they really had a pretty big transition. Most of the Flash Wolf staff actually ended up in the LPL, and they are a brand new organization on their own coming into the PCS. We are going to see the Herald drop, and this should be a clean Herald take right here. I don't think Impunity want to sink resources into defending
here,
this.
But Blaze already tanks a big zap. That's going to be so close to finishing off the tower. Blaze is so low, and rocket intercepted by Taco. This is a bit touch and go here, and Faith has picked up a package, and he's looking for someone to sign for it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious on Impunity's decision to actually tank the tower right there. They do hold on to their tower, but I don't think it makes much sense in the grand scheme of things, and they will just end up losing the Drake for it. So we'll see if they have any fight right here. Like, I feel like PSG are still pretty happy to just walk into bot lane and just outrange and take the tower down anyway, so they're not very concerned about that attack being throtted. As we finally get the response I personally would have wanted to see, Impunity moving towards the top side, trying to get something in return.
Navi doesn't see this until it's a little bit late right now. Let's see if he can stay alive. Cannon Barrage comes down. Narvar about to run out. And he gets stopped and stunned. Nowhere to go. And that is going to be the pickup. In exchange for tower, Faith claims a kill. But how much more can PSG get here as they've got 3 and a minion wave on tier 2?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times a better play in that situation is you give up the tower, you preserve HP on most of your champions, and then you look for cross-map plays. I feel like Impunity lost a little bit too much in the defense, and the rotation was slow. I feel like Taco could have headed top lane immediately when that play was starting to develop right there. And, you know, I really would have preferred, like, quiet Cannon Barrage, drop bot lane, try to get something back onto top side. But in this case, you know, the gold lead actually shifts massively towards PSG, as inner towers actually contain a lot of gold.
Yeah, all that buys Unified a shiny new Kraken Slayer as well, and this is going to be a little bit tough for Impunity to try and fight out. Now, critically, though, Quiet does have access to his Trinity Force too, so the Gangplank has been doing all right. I wanted to call attention to the fact that Hanabi has been outplaying this, and now, even with the nerfs to the Hullbreaker, he still opted into it for a first item. Of course, I guess in Mega form, Nara is melee.
I've seen on 12.5. The builds really haven't changed that much. Hullbreaker is still pretty common on Gnar, even though I do feel like Gnar should be very much weaker. It's easier to trade on him without all those extra resistances, especially in mini Gnar form. He only gets 50% of those resistances compared to his melee form. So he is a little bit easier to take down, especially when mini Gnar. But it's still pretty common, and we also see Triforce being built a lot onto the Gnar these days around. So Hanabi, just happy to stay in 1v2. They have full vision of Taco, but he knows that his jungler is around as well.
Yeah, if there's anybody who's familiar with the Gnar v Gangplank matchup, it's got to be Hanabi too. He definitely knows the limits of what he can get away with, and pretty full control here for PSG as they're baiting around the side. Ooh, that ward saved the life of Pinway.
Yeah, I absolutely love the way that Hanabi played this. Early on, there's nothing much you can do against the Gangplank. I feel like he always gets that, just the Sheen item buy, the TP bag, and you can't trade against him. But something that Hanabi did really well in this lane is he actually punished Quiet for holding the wave. One way you play against the Gangplank is you make sure he can't parlay you constantly and has to deal with the minion wave. So you're just pushing him in, and whenever Gangplank tries to walk up and trade, you have the minion wave behind you, and you can also do a lot more auto trades without worrying about countermeasures from the ranged minions on Quiet's side. So that was really beautiful from Hanabi's part, and pretty common in the way that you have to play some of these lanes. It's about stacking up and knowing that when you have to use the minion wave to your advantage. As Taco is here, but probably takes aggro a little bit earlier than we wanted to.
Yeah, a bit of a misfire there, and turns tail and runs away from the baby Yordle in pajamas.
I would do the same thing too. Just saying.
Oh yeah, Gnar's terrifying. I don't want to deal with that. But yeah, almost 16 minutes on the clock. It's been a low-kill game because PSG, they've just played this out relatively safe. It's a 5,000 gold advantage, not to mention the Drake stack they've got building. It will be an Ocean Rift, worth pointing out this time around. So a lot of terrain to play with, a lot of brushes to hide in, and might make Impunity's life a little bit more difficult. Have to ward up a lot more.
Just an interesting stat to throw out. PSG has won 100% of the games where they have a lead at 50 minutes. We're already at the 16-minute mark, and I think it's fair to say that they have a very solid lead. This is not a team that ever throws to the point that you can claw the game back. Definitely very different from the old PSG in that sense.
Very
we
true.
have the siege going on.
Oh no, second Shelly charge. They might even get a third off of this one. Look at how much damage Unified is dealing onto the tanky members, and yes, a third Shelly charge. I believe the camera pans away there, but we'll have to see if they didn't delete it in time. All the same, Hanabi also shoving wave on bottom side, and yeah, this is the PSG game plan. They're just squeezing Impunity out, who are locked into the playoffs, but would have loved to grab a win here today. Still a chance to do it, but it gets harder and harder.
I feel like Impunity are just still waiting on the second package to come in. They do have the package now onto Corki and an Ocean Drake coming up, so potentially they want to stop the Drake stacking, but at this point I feel like PSG should be confident enough to just walk in and fight this. There are a couple things that Impunity could win out on. Hanabi has 0 rage bar here, so that could mean a huge moment for Impunity. See if they can catch anyone out.
They do see Drake, and that's okay. You can always come right back onto it. They don't necessarily need to fight over that one, so it is given out. But Impunity, even though they've managed to sneak one, let's see if they get away fully safely here. Juhan does get caught for a little bit of damage, but not much. And that's going to be a blue buff takeaway for Unified this time around. Ooh, I wasn't pinging out for help. No, that's okay. They can't quite chase on this.
Yeah, PSG is still staying way too safe right here. And remember the stakes again. If Impunity win, if PSG win here, they will keep the game difference at 3 games with only 2 remaining for both CFO and Beyond Gaming. So they can keep themselves out of reach of those 2 teams if they take this victory.
Now, Deep Cross and J-Team still have the opportunity to catch them. They'll be back 2 games after this, but it does get a lot harder for those 2 squads to close it out, and PSG can definitely look to go 3 for 3 in a couple of years here as #1 seeds heading into the playoffs. This has been one of the more competitive splits we've seen so far, and a lot of it has to do with just so many new teams and so many new players coming into the league. I think we had something on the scale of almost half the active starting players on day 1 were, if not rookies, players that did not have nearly as much stage experience. So it's a big paradigm shift, but you know, some of the old adages of the last couple of years do still seem to ring true with PSG finding that dominant momentum. We thought things would be different when they lost on day one to Beyond. Well, they're going to have some chance to right those wrongs, if you will, at the end of the week.
Yeah, hopefully we will see more teams getting in on the fray. You know, 2021 was all about Dago and Maple kind of dominating the league. Unified as well, part of that squad. Bay is, I can't believe how audacious he's just pushing this. He's walking up the Taco that can stun him point blank, and he doesn't care. He has Kaiwing there with the Flash and Devour. He's actually incredibly safe in this position. And in the meantime, you have a big wave crashing down onto the mid lane. That means a Gnar can join here as well. We aren't seeing Hanabi actually hold on to his mini Gnar just yet. Okay, there he goes. He wants to charge that up. Probably join the top lane once that wave is shoved in. Here we go. Juhan could threaten the massive engage whenever he wants to. I believe he has the stasis as well, so if he wants to, he definitely could pull the trigger.
Okay, good defense, though, for the time being. They actually managed to hold on to it. Unfortunately, Faith is a little bit low. Here we go in the picture-in-picture. We're going to check this one with Gangplank v. Gnar. Ooh, stun on Pinway, but nobody's able to follow up. Not the target you want anyways. Here comes Taco. Oh, it's a tense moment. They do manage to land the Solar Flare, but no follow-up damage. Key ultimate down here, and this should be the tower.
Yeah, just mounting pressure by PSG. They just let things simmer and
let
it boil. Taco able to walk out right there quite easily. Let's get some extra resistances there. And I feel like this is just the PSG style. They just sit back and just put more and more pressure. They force you to be the ones who are the aggressors. And when they don't see a response, they just keep on taking more and more. It's 20 minutes, 8,000 gold ahead already. And we are still waiting for those Mirror Manos to go online. I feel like that's when Impunity feel that they might have a standing chance. But right now, they stacked it close to 80% on both Blaze and Faith, just waiting for those big items to come in. We also need the Mythic on Faith as well. Typically, they don't go for the Ludens. 339. Once he gets that, I think that Impunity will be doing a lot more damage and feeling a little bit more confident in trying to start things off.
There might be a Baron fight coming off of it. I mean, with the way this is going so early, even though PSG are playing very safe, they could threaten this and try to turn for the fight on their own terms. The question is, do they want that?
I feel like PSG, because they don't have the best of turn, are likely not going to start Baron proactively. They're much likely to actually wait for death brushes around these areas. I feel like that's easier to do in these tight corridors. You can use Flame Chompers as pseudo-engage and just trap people as they come forward. Starting the Baron against Corki plus Cannon Barrage, that seems a little bit risky, so I understand what PSG are doing here. And once more, if they win this game, they can take two contenders off of the table to catch their spot. So they're going to play probably as safe as possible.
Yeah, PSG don't want to give anything up, especially after surprise loss against the likes of CFO. Won't want to give that one up again. However, another objective on the table, a lot easier to secure than the big purple worm is, of course, that Ocean Drake they missed out on last time around. So with this, it would put them at Soul Point. Easy enough to take between Juhan and Hanabi. They can still hold the line, and look at this. Impunity trying to fan out here and clear some vision on the pit up top, as well as finish off a tower. They do need something. Impunity have not managed to get a single tower in this game.
Ooh, it's been a really rough time, and a lot of it has just been because of both losing side lanes and not getting a good trade top either as well. I do like this move. They know they can't contest Drake, so they just clear out the Baron, give themselves a little bit more breathing time. We finally have that Luden's Echo completed at 22 minutes.
Let's go.
Second item, that should be the go button, start some poke. Corki will start to hurt after this one. We've all seen how it goes. We could expect just a Hex Drinker next, going for that Malmortius. That has been the traditional build right here. And once again, PSG, I don't expect them to fully commit anytime soon. If there is any threat on Baron, there are much easier ways to play out the game. They might even just sit and wait for the Dragon Soul, to be honest. Like, with how we've seen PSG play games this split, I think it's part of the course.
Yeah, kick back and relax. I mean, they don't want to give an opening to this team to come back into it. And as we mentioned in Pick Ban, this is just such a high damage squad that you do not want to risk giving anything over to. Unified on that back picks himself up a rapid fire cannon, so adding a little extra range. Ooh, the rocket flying through. There's nobody you can really delete, but you can irritate Blaze, and honestly, that has its own value.
It's pretty huge. Getting some valuable information on where the AD carry is on the jungle. You know they're going to force it back on him, so they should be very confident walking into the red side jungle at this point. Kylie's going to lead the way, and they meet no resistance. They're just going to full clear, start the fight.
Taco! He's going to have to use his Heartbreaker to get out of harm's way. Oh boy.
That was 2 auto attacks and a zap, taking him down to below half HP.
That's 3 Adam Jinx.
PSG look like they're pretty happy to start this one. Hanabi with a great Narbar as well. There are no angles of attack. They have to drop the cannon barrage and try to close on PSG as they are walking out.
Slow response. Already down to 3,000. Teleport actually only just started here as they do get into the Leona pit, but no! Oh, Taco just gets destroyed before he has a chance, and now they're gonna just push forward on this Baron. Quiet, isolated from the team, trying to find an opening. In fact, they don't even look for him as they find Pinway. Blaze already down, and Taco just completely ignoring the gangplank, and it's into the mid lane. Oh boy, Unified outranging the tower here.
That just felt like such a weird timing to actually use the TP right there. He should have dropped the cannon barrage earlier. The TP is a very long time to coming in, so he doesn't even manage to put damage on PSG. That's their best chance for the turnaround right there, especially when their magic resistance is getting shredded by the Baron. But it's kind of perplexingly, Quiet doesn't pull the trigger. They even had a Scryer on him, but just doesn't do it. So
that's PSG, just a slow top lane.
Yeah, they took that with really no threat whatsoever.
A lot of more shiny item buys coming in. That's going to be the Randuins, followed up by Deadman's Plate, and on Hanabi and Juhan. The Empowered Recalls, they'll be able to get away from this one. You can tell, again, more risk averse, or rather not unnecessary risk-taking. Here it goes. Way too late of a reaction, and man, Taco, he sees the chance to be a hero, but he just gets stunned for days. Juhan jumps in, forces the back away, and Quiet's like, I'm going to get this. Wait, where'd they go?
Everyone's gone already. So I will have to say that the Scry did come a little bit later, so it was a panic TP. He definitely should have dropped the ultimate before that. Unfortunately, he just didn't know about it, and Navi's going to find a little bit one-on-one time with Blaze. Also very unfortunate for Taco. He flashes over the wall, and Neganar still hits him.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, that's rough. Well, PSG looking to close this one out and try to put some distance between themselves and the rest of the teams at the top of the table, looking to try and get as close to locking up that #1 seed as they can. Still not a guarantee that they've got a playoff bye, but it's about as good as you can get with the win here today. However, here's the counter engage, and a big package delivery from Faith. Will it be enough? As Pinway goes golden to buy some time, Faith trying to cut him off here, but Unified turns unstoppable as he takes down Taco. Boss Bomb irritating them, but Kaiwing stiff-arming. No. Meanwhile, Hanabi just wins the game!
This is the most Hanabi game we have ever seen. No ganks going on his way, doesn't matter, gets canned, but still wins the game at the very end. I just feel like Impunity, unfortunately for them, they didn't get to pull the trigger early enough. They had both globals online, but we didn't see a combined arms play until the last moments in the game. You saw how much power they were actually packing. They definitely had enough damage to dissuade some of these pushes here, but it's just way too little, too late for them. And a lot of it just came from the fact that the bot lane laning phase went disastrously for Impunity early on. They were losing in the lane with that tongue lash harass, and in their first game they just lost all of their summoners plus a first blood, which put them massively on the back foot. They don't have a real champion in the mid lane for much of the game, and it's just 4v2 pressure mounting, and they also don't trade. So I feel like Impunity just kind of they had late game, but I still feel like they needed to do a little bit more aggression in the early to mid game to make sure that they could actually have a chance later on.
There just wasn't much of an opportunity once Bot got a little bit scuffed, and you see some of the difference in what these players can do with their champions. I mean, top lane started turning in favor of Hanabi after a little while. That bot side, I mean, the Tongue Lash Harass is just a perfect snapshot of just how damn good Kaiwing is at this game and what he can do for Unified. And Unified, of course, just popping off as the Jinx in a lot of those fights. Bay flexing a bit on the Syndra as well. I mean, that flash, unleash power swag in the mid lane. Obviously, he had the card stacked in his favor due to the matchup, but he knew exactly what he needed to just get those little leads. And it was, maybe one or two mistakes from Juhan, like early on, just kind of stepping a little too far forward, maybe a bit of miscommunication between him and Bay. They are not getting the Syndra to join him early enough. Didn't end up costing him because he got out alive just fine. And PSG, they just continue to win by never presenting a weakness, right? They just kind of rolled over slowly just with the shields up.
The scary thing to me is, honestly, they could have just gone with any composition and did relatively similar things. Like, this was not a composition-based game whatsoever. Like, you didn't see what this comp was supposed to do 5v5 grouped together. There wasn't really a lot of interaction between the pieces at all. It was just individual lane dominance and moving across the team as a strong macro formation. And I feel like that's the strongest point about PSG, is just that a lot of times they have a very, very high floor for their individual levels. And that translates to a lot of different types of win scenarios for them, where they don't necessarily have to throw down and force mechanics. And that's kind of the interesting thing going into playoffs, because we do have a very, very long time between the end of regular season and then going into playoffs. Playoffs don't start until March 31st. So if you think about that timing window, it does allow teams to drill down on their macro a little bit more. And I just hope we actually get to see PSG tested mechanically when it comes to postseason. I don't really want to see, if you think about the playoffs, what could potentially happen is just 3 series of PSG roll stomping people with this type of macro play. And that would be a new form of purgatory in its own.
It could happen, but I do think that there have been a handful of teams that have been able to surprise PSG, as we've seen in individual games. It could translate, but it is not an easy task. PSG just showed why they are the macro kings of the PCS, and in this one, Impunity, they had a couple things going for them. I mean, Quiet had a good matchup for himself. Unfortunately, bot lane fell too far behind, mid lane fell too far behind, jungle fell too far behind. You can't do it all on your own, and at the end of the day, feels bad when the guy opposite you is the one free hitting the Nexus at the end. So, well-earned win for PSG. They wrap it up in 27 minutes and 15 seconds to put themselves at 14-2, 2 games out of reach of Deep Cross and J-Team, and 3 games out of CFO and Beyond Gaming, who will not be able to contend for a number 1 seed. But there's still the possibility of getting that 2nd seed in that bye.
For sure. We started at 5 teams potentially vying for the championship. Not the championship, the 1st seed today. Now we are down to 3. MVP goes to Unified 5-0-0. It's great kill allocation. No assists handed out whatsoever. And pretty much your expected play coming in from Unified here. I think this game was fairly interesting because it did showcase that the team was willing to pick the Jinx over the Zeri, which is something that we will continue to monitor and see if that's the trend on 12.5. So far, both champions still have super high ban pick ratios. Both of them, Jinx is around 90%, while we have Zeri a little bit higher, still at 93%. But we'll continue to see which teams favor each other, but it does seem like we are getting a bit of parity, at least between the 2 picks.
Yeah, very possible. Could be a new day down in the bottom lane after just a lot of Jinx Aphelios for so much of the season already. Here are today's results. Blue side continues to be pretty dominant, but of course J-Team shaking things up with a win over Hurricane Gaming to start the day. Then CFO beat MFT. Frank Esports upset Deep Cross, our biggest surprise of the day. For Beyond beat Sen9, and PSG, as you just saw, took out Impunity.
Very happy for Frank Esports. You could see the team was in tears as they now advance past Meta Falcon Team and Impunity Esports. I have to mention that their schedule is still relatively tough, and those 3 teams, Frank to Impunity, are vying for only 1 slot to start in the upper bracket. So I expect that to be one of our most tough fights. Meanwhile, the rest of the teams from Megabank to Deep Cross Gaming, everyone is going for the 2nd seed. And Deep Cross and J-Team, they still have some chances of overtaking, not overtaking, but at least getting a tiebreaker with PSG.
Yeah, it's very possible, but of course, these are the 2 squads that have not managed to beat PSG in that top half of the bracket. So they've got their work cut out for them if they get to that point and even doing it. But we do still have quite a lot of contention up here. It is a different day in the PCS than what we have seen in the past as far as the seeding is concerned. No more do we have the PSG perfect split, but a couple teams able to challenge. Let's take a look at tomorrow's matchups and what is on the line. MFT facing off against Hurricane, who are eliminated from playoffs, but MFT, it still means every game counts for them. And then, of course, Frank Esports up against Impunity. That has huge implications for the 6th through 8th fight.
And then we follow up with the J team versus DCG. This is the second and third team, which means that PSG are sitting by on a lawn chair and mowing down popcorn, watching these two fight it out. They can't both win.
Oh, yeah.
And that just means their seat is even more secure going forward. CFO and Beyond Gaming, if they can't vie for first, they definitely want to vie for second. And I feel like most teams will be cheering for Beyond Gaming in the second one. Hey,
they got
a reminder.
One.
Yeah, they took down PSG the first time around. They could do it the second time around, just like with CFO.
And DCG, despite a loss today, did manage to beat J-Team on opening day as well for a big surprise. They certainly came prepared by showing all of their J-Team credentials. I think a team that enters the league with that much swagger certainly has something to prove for themselves. I'm excited for a lot of matchups tomorrow, a lot of things on the line. And, of course, we have 5 more games after this even before we are done with the regular split. Not to mention any potential tiebreakers, Clement. I think it's certainly possible we'll be getting a few based on what we've seen. It feels like every week we get like 1 or 2 possibilities at an upset, and then something crazy happens, and we're like, okay, this changes the game just a little bit.
Just a reminder, we will be playing our tiebreakers, if necessary, on Sunday. So that's why we're starting the week a little bit earlier on Thursday. I'm sure those are going to be very exciting. And as usual in the PCS, everything does come down to the wire, to the very last second, to decide who gets those playoff seeds.
Absolutely. It is going to be an absolute battle and an absolute race to the finish. But that is it for us today. Join us tomorrow once again, same time as more of the PCS Week 6 continues. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.